Push the red button once. Nothing else. Oh, see, I pushed it twice.
Okay, is it counting?
No, I pushed it once and nothing happened, and I pushed it a second time and it... All right, thank you. Today is April 3rd, 2023. Call to order the meeting of the Tilton Northfield Fire District Facilities Committee. Members present. Committee members present. Tim Sattler, Lisa Martin, Paul Blaisdell, Derek Farrell, Kevin Walden, Dennis Manning, Chief Seatar, two people who were gracious enough to come visit us this evening from the public, Bill Wilder, Gretchen Wilder. Do you guys want to, we can lead off with you guys if you have something, comments or questions or anything.
Well, yeah, that's fine. So I spoke to Paul at the district meeting about what you guys got going on here. Anybody here ever heard of Morton Building?
Yeah.
I suggested that you guys look into that before you go too much further. I could have got the guy here, but you know, Paul was on vacation, so we didn't want to do that. But I would suggest you get Morton Building here before you go vote on hiring some construction firm or whatever you're probably going to do tonight. That would be my suggestion. Because what I understand is they build, they engineer it, and they design it. I think that the Gilmanton Life Safety Building, you know, the one on 140, I believe that's a Morton building.
I've spoken to someone that was on the committee back a few years ago. We worked at the same agency at the state, and they came in under budget, on time. It was easier for the committee members and the staff of the town to deal with. I believe it was Morton, because that's when I brought it to him, and they had gone around, Gilmanton had gone around and seen other buildings and asked people, so they had done some hands-on and stuff like that, and I didn't want to reach out to them on your behalf because that's not my function, my role. I'm not going to step on toes, but they were very happy with the building. The building is beautiful. It's got to be. I mean, I was
You
working.
go on their website, it shows you what we build, and you know, you got la 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 la. So you go to municipal, and they've built hundreds of fire stations.
But they do all the CAD design, and then it's kind of like one of those sunrooms. They come out to your house, they do a CAD design, and they drop it at your house and pop it up in a couple of days, and you just pay for it. I mean, there's something to be said for that. When you talk about, you know, getting the stone and this
much
and that.
quicker. You're not talking a year to build a building. They come, they drop that thing off, and those guys show up and put it up.
Do you happen to know if that building in Gilmanton houses firefighters full-time, or if it's just for
I
equipment?
think it was supposed to.
It was supposed to.
But they're still saying it the other one, the old one.
The original, if you do any research online, they were very unhappy that the building had mold and they had
The
issues.
old one.
The old one, and that's why they moved forward with this piece of land. And I think they own the land and they threw the building on. But here it is, 10, 15 years later, and they don't man it. I don't know why. That's something that maybe someone could answer for you. But they wanted to get out of that building the worst way, and
They ended up staying.
I don't know if they did any remediation or anything. I don't know that the taxpayers, if I paid for a brand new life safety building, I wouldn't be paying for remediation on the old station.
Do you happen to know what other agencies are in that life safety building?
Just police and fire, I believe.
Yeah, police and fire.
I think it's a safety.
Yeah.
I could talk to Joe Hempel, who's chief down there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know him real well.
Yeah.
Here's the
And the
issue.
builder.
But there is an
Right,
issue.
we can't do that.
It's,
Unfortunately.
we would have a legal issue,
With what?
because we advertised and they didn't respond to the RFQ.
Oh, you sent that out already?
Oh, everything, it's
Yeah.
been submitted and
Ah.
reviewed, and
We just interviewed the people that
the
actually
people that,
responded.
and they're doing the same thing, they have a team, and that it's a design-build contract.
Right.
But had Morton
you're-
was
yeah,
saying,
right.
had they responded to the RFQ,
Right.
then we would be reviewing it.
I wish I knew.
It was advertised, I think, in the
Yeah.
papers.
Yeah,
Most
sure.
contractors look for that type of thing,
And
so
it
they
would-
may not have been interested, I don't know.
It was also included in the state website.
Yeah, so I don't know what the state website for advertising is, but it was in both papers. It was in the Laconia Daily Sun, it was in the Manchester Union, what do they call that?
Union leader.
Union Leader, and most contractors use a clipping service that looks for advertisements in those types of papers to say, okay, these people are looking for bids and stuff like that. But,
Oh, that's too bad.
but, if we pick a contractor and they want to talk to them, we can give them that information
Right,
and,
sure.
maybe
Right.
they'll use them in that,
Right.
that respect. But if we,
But you're still
we'd have
paying now,
to,
you're
we'd have
paying
to
the
start all
contractor
over our
and-
process
yeah,
to include them.
Right,
We'd have to scrap everything we did so far and to move forward.
do you have a design for this thing?
No.
No, this is the whole thing, just, I'm new on the committee, I sat on the last committee, and, that we had back in, 16, 17, 18, or whatever it was. But, I got back on this one, we're not even really, in my opinion, we're not to a build phase yet, they're doing a study, there's no guarantee it's gonna even be down on Park Street.
Right.
They're gonna study to see what the feasibility is for Park Street, feasibility for other places.
And also a needs study.
Well, right, it needs study, because
Not just
I'm not gonna.
Space needs and all that kind of
I'm
stuff.
not, we'll wait for the meeting to go till we get to that part, but there's plenty more to say on that.
So do you have to start from square one each and every time you form a committee?
We have.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, this is the second one I've been on.
But again, like I said, I have a lot more to say to a lot of the different things as we go on with this.
So the plan
That'll
at the
make things
moment is
clear.
add on to Park Street, is that the, kind of the plan at the moment?
I think that's one of the options that this committee, I was, like I said, I was on the original committee.
That was the original focus
That was the,
Yeah,
of this committee.
Right,
Somewhere along the way, to appease Tilton, we burped and said, oh, we gotta look at land by the police station.
God forbid if we include our other community.
So
Well, the thing is, it just seems like it's always the us them mentality that's,
decisions to recommend to the commissioners who make the final decision,
right,
and then somebody gets a different idea, the committee changes, and now one of the two people on this list that we met with previously has got the idea in head that's gonna be 20,000 square feet. I, sitting here, have no idea where 20,000 square feet came from.
that was on the website. Spreadsheet.
We didn't talk about 20,000 feet long enough to decide it was way too big. And then all of a sudden, it's come back to us.
how many square feet is that Park Street now, chief?
4,800.
4,800. So you basically need, what, a couple more bays or 3 bays, you tell me.
Well,
What would you like?
what we need in total, wherever it's located, whether it's one building, two buildings, what we need in total is 12 apparatus bays, maybe get away with 11, but then you have a funny shaped building.
Right,
We need dorm rooms, kitchen,
sure.
we need everything,
yeah.
really.
Right.
A meeting, training room.
2 floors, I would assume.
If you could do it on one floor, that would be better.
Yeah.
But if the land isn't
Right,
sized appropriately, you'd have to look at 2
Sure.
floors. 2 floors brings into other requirements, ADA, stairwells. You might be able to get away with some of that stuff depending upon what you put on the second floor.
right,
If it's just sleeping quarters
yeah.
and nothing else, you might be able to get away without
Right.
having to have some
Yeah.
that extra stuff, but you certainly always need 2 means of egress.
Right.
So,
What was the square footage that we were discussing? Because I'm 12,000.
Used to be 14.
I think 14,000 was all the other new buildings, but we still had 2, all the other proposals were a new building of 14,000 and keeping Park Street, which is 4,800. So you're talking, that's like 18,000 and change, 19,000.
However, we never had a space study, and that's what we're relying on the experts, which would be the architects that we interviewed, right?
So
That's
we did
that's the
have
starting
the
point.
original one for the Tilton School property.
Okay.
We did have an architect do a space study needs, and that's how we ended up with the 14,000 square foot proposal for the Tilton School property, which also transferred to the Manville Road property.
14.
It didn't look, the building didn't look the same because the land was different, so they had to
And
adjust.
those proposals were also using Park Street,
Yes, keeping Park Street.
so that's where the 14 came.
So I guess that's kind of where we stand on it. My preference is, and I mean, of course, we have the space needs to look at, but my preference is Park Street only. That's my personal preference.
And there's more than enough land there to do it.
So-
Is there really? Between the building and the on-ramp, right?
We bought some land from the state.
We have a little more than 2 acres there right now.
Okay.
I think it's 2.2.
Doesn't look that big.
But it's not flat land. It looks flat, but
Right.
it's nowhere near flat.
Yeah, it's
Here's-
only flat behind the building and goes down and not back.
To move forward, what we have to do is stay focused. And so we're in the process of, we've interviewed 2
Firms.
design-build firms. We should choose one. Then what we do is need to define their scope, to say, we want you to look at a space needs study on Park Street or another location, and give them some scope so they can cost it out, because that's the only way we're gonna get through this process. Otherwise, we'll keep doing the same thing. Oh, Mansfield, oh, here, oh, there, oh, and we'll just spend all the design money and never get anything. So I think after we choose someone, I kind of we're saying, well, we need to develop our goals. We need to develop the criteria, and we also need to develop survey questions for the public, because I think that was an important point that one of them made. Well, we said we were gonna do it anyway, but.
So the commissioners, it's been a long time, when the Sanborn Road property became available, the commissioners wanted whoever we elect to put forward to the commissioners for them to hire was for them to use that company to do not only a needs assessment, but also a cost assessment of what it would cost to build on those 2 parcels.
Right.
And to see, what that would be. Is it gonna cost more to build something here, or is it gonna cost more to build something here?
What is the
And
cost
can you
of
balance it out?
the Sanborn Road property?
It's actually a swap, a land swap.
What for what?
The Center Street property for Sanborn Road, it's a lease, a $1 lease is the current deal between the selectmen and the commissioners.
And how
And
long?
nothing signed or anything like that, but that's kind of like,
That could be worked on too, I mean, because, as a Tilton resident, I'd be going to, I think the whole lease with the town of Tilton is crap. I mean, if they're gonna do a swap, I mean,
I think,
it should be like,
Is it direct
it
swap?
becomes district property, not a
parcel for
lease.
parcel, except that the fire district would take care of removal of the building at Center Street.
So I think something to think about with the commissioners is that if they want the district to lease Sanborn Road property, then they should lease Center Street property for an for identical contracts.
Yeah, that's up to the commissioners to really figure out, it's not.
Yeah, the only thing we need to know is when we look at cost estimating, what are the costs, so you can compare.
And you'd
we can
have
do
to
that.
include the
We can
cost
do
of that swap.
You'd have to include the
Demolition of that
demolition.
building.
Yeah, I think we
Yes.
gotta demolish the
Yes.
building one way or another, even if we
Well,
move to
that may
Park
be a
Street.
fixed cost. Well, can you, or can't you sell it?
The commissioners, well, if we
You
take,
don't.
if we use Sanborn Road, the building has to come down according to what I've heard in agreements, and the cost of that is about $70,000. if we don't use Sanborn Road and put everything at Park Street, the Center Street parcel could be for sale or whatever.
But there's lead. They'd have to be
It's lead.
remediation.
It's lead and asbestos. The asbestos is in the flooring. There's no, that building was built before they really used asbestos in any of the
But
construction.
I guess my point is if the district were to put that up for sale, all that would have to be remediated before it could be sold.
I don't know.
Why?
Well, you have to disclose it.
Okay, so
You
you
don't
disclose
have
that
to
nobody's gonna buy it, realistically.
If they wanna encapsulate, it's been encapsulated, you're not breathing it, I hope, right?
If you have to do if you do a remediation, yeah, it has to be done by a licensed remediator. And however they're doing it, that's.
I would think the town of Tilton's probably gonna end up getting it. I mean, however it works out, if we leave that building, it's advantageous for the town to actually have that property. So
Sure.
I don't think, you know, I honestly, I think it'll go either way.
Well, I think a land swap is a great idea, but it has to be
I
a
think you need
swap.
a swap, not a lease.
Exactly.
Right.
But we're getting.
But that's
ahead
not
of
for,
But
yeah,
that's-
that's
that's
not for us
It's
to
not our
decide.
committees.
Right.
Okay, I guess what I'd like to do then is we'll just go around the table and discuss the interviews and comments. So, Tim, you want to start?
I guess my takeaway was that either one of those companies were more than capable of building us a building. I like some things about one over, some things about the other. But trying to understand the value of those feelings, I'm not sure how to evaluate that. Would obviously need to have a conversation and get some input. I think specifically, I prefer the LaValle Brenzinger architect.
He was the guy for
Fulcrum.
Fulcrum.
Yeah.
That's it? Okay.
I mean, we can go into more detail, but that's my major point.
Lisa?
Well, I have to concur, I think the architect, LaValle Bresnanger kind of blew the other team away. If I were to score Fulcrum, I was gonna give him 100% and give him the full 10 points. Then when I looked at it and I said, okay, Lorero can do the job, we know they've done work. In order for them, even if they didn't score very high, because of the way we scored all of the other quantities, you would have to give them a 60 just to tie. So in no matter what, Lorero comes out ahead in my opinion. But I think that Fulcrum did a great job in the interview, and LaValle Bresnanger as a team. Lorero did as well. They had a great sales pitch. But I think that the architect, when they said LaValle has a program, when they do their space needs, it's not basically taking your spreadsheet. They have a physical, a computer program that they plug in the needs of the community, and to me, I thought that was important.
And which team?
So which
is that?
team are you? I'm confused.
LaValle Bresnanger, their architect.
Fulcrum.
Remember, I asked,
Right.
about the space needs in the interview, and they said they have a program that basically they must put in our population, they must put in all the factors from NFPA, I assume, and maybe the other architect does too, and it comes up with a space, a recommended space, right?
And you're
The
saying
space needs.
you like Fulcrum better than?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, LaValle and Fulcrum are the
Yes.
team.
Yes.
I just thought in the interview, they did very well, and I was impressed by LaValle, the architect. That's not to say that Lorero didn't do well. I'm just comparing two. We have two apples to compare. So I
Well,
think
when you do
either.
that, one of them's gotta come out on top.
Well, and that's why I was scoring them higher for the interview. But we've already rated all of the two of them on all kinds of other points. And Fulcrum was the underdog based on our previous scoring.
But with respect to just the interview, your
correct,
preference is Fulcrum
yes,
as a team.
yes. Just based on interview alone. And I was gonna give them 100, and it really wouldn't matter, what I was trying to say was it wouldn't matter what you gave Lorero, they're still gonna come ahead because of their previous scores.
I'm impressed that you can say that word.
Lorero, I had to practice. I'm probably not even saying it right.
I can't say it.
Well, they did, actually, I listened the first time they said it, and that's how they pronounced it.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
But I think, I mean, like I said, I wasn't against Lorero, I just thought that the other team had a better interview outcome.
I feel like this scoring method here, Lorero only came out on top when it came to the initial fee and the design build fee. Fulcrum
Because
beat
Fulcrum.
everybody out, beat them out in everything except the design build fee and the initial fee. It's the only reason Lorero was ahead of Fulcrum.
Correct,
So,
correct.
in my mind, all those things weigh out more than the design build fee and the initial
The
fee.
reason that happened was because Fulcrum
Didn't
didn't
provide.
follow any of the instructions when it
Right.
came to providing that
Right.
thing, and so if
So
if
what
you
I'm
can't
saying
follow
is,
instructions,
You're
then
right, that's what knocked them out. They
That's what
didn't
knocked them
follow
out.
in
instructions.
the municipal references, where are we getting those references from? Those from you?
Yes.
And how, I just don't understand how you scored that. Did we see those references?
Yeah,
You called,
I gave them all out.
Okay.
Yeah.
You called the.
So, in regards to references, when I called the folks that used Fulcrum, they all said they would use them again. But when I called the people who use Lorero, they not only said they used them again, they were emphatic that they were so good because they were like on point on all the construction methods, saving them money,
I understand
no punch lists at the end, that kind of stuff.
you told me that you had a conversation with me about that, but I don't, how did you come up with your scoring method on that?
I think it was just a preference, one or the other.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Well, I think you gave us a list of questions.
Yeah.
that- I think we all agreed at a previous meeting, maybe you weren't here, that was the appropriate score.
I think it was, yeah.
But really what is, the zeros for the fees are what is killing.
This is
Is that what, so they missed
This is a-
the initial
score
fee?
sheet.
They
and
didn't
These are all the
submit
criteria
it
that
on
we put in
time,
our
and then they
proposal.
submitted it late, and
And
then
these are
what
the
they
two
submitted didn't match what
What they
we
submitted
asked.
was wrong. too.
Responded, and
So-
those are the scores that you gave them.
Legally,
No, that's okay.
you know, you really couldn't accept it after the due date, right?
Right. That's what it really came down to semantics on that one, not so much that Lorero was so much, I mean, it was just top notch. It was a matter of having what we were supposed to have, when we were supposed to have it, opposed to not.
So Derek, you're up.
I had to leave for most of the Lorero ones, but from what I saw, I wasn't very impressed with their interview. I wasn't impressed with their architect. I couldn't think of the name. And I personally like Fulcrum. I like their architect. I like the guy seemed very well put together. Seems like he has a great team. He said, I think 10 to 15 people on his crew. Just for the architecture. So my vote would be for Fulcrum, but that's it.
Kevin?
Believe it or not, I don't have much to say, because my feelings mirror Tim's so closely. The only thing I would add is, given the fact that they did not provide the information as outlined and requested,
You're talking Fulcrum.
yeah, I'm not sure I would vote for either.
You're not sure you would vote for either?
Right.
Okay.
They got where they are. I don't know if by default is the word or not, but they didn't come through as requested along the way. They left some things out. They were given another opportunity, as I remember it, and that didn't make it either. So the thing that comes to my mind is, does that correlate to performance? And I don't know. You know, if I could like pick what I might really like would be one of the architects in the opposite firm. And I get the feeling I'm not the only one that felt that way.
Yeah, well, a lot of what I have to say has been said. The architect definitely, Fulcrum was way more polished. They come across way more professionally. But I got a more genuine feeling from Lorero. I mean, they felt like genuine guys. You know, it's like the difference, you know, I could talk to a car salesman or I could talk to the farmer. The farmer's genuine, but he's not so well spoken and polished. But I'm still getting a good deal from the farmer. That's kind of, I know, I'm going to take it down to that, but that's kind of how I felt about it.
That's a good analogy.
But,
I was gonna say, you're looking at Tim as you're talking about car sales.
he's not a car salesman. He's in the head shed. He's in the head shed. But hey, you go to a car shop, a dealership that's well polished and professional, right? But yeah, but I think we're going to get a better deal as far as architectural services. I mean, I got a better feeling. I'm not saying we can get a better deal, but I really felt way more confident with LaValle here, the LaValle Bresner. I think he had a better understanding of like the hot zones. I think he articulated that a lot better than did Lorero. Like I said, it's hard. I think they all did well. It's just again, it really came down to me. Lorero wasn't as polished, and had it not been for references in past buildings that they've built, I probably would be like, nah, I think I'll go with Fulcrum. Knowing, you know, with the references they've had, though, I mean, just because they didn't come off as polished doesn't mean that they're not performers. I mean, they definitely perform. So, I mean, I'm swayed towards Fulcrum myself, just because I think I'm more for, well, and when we get into discussions further on, you'll understand why, but I think we'll get a better idea of an analysis studies needs analysis. I think we'll benefit from a needs analysis better from Fulcrum than will we from Lorero at this point. I think we could get a good building built on time, maybe even cheaper by Lorero, but as far as I'm concerned, we're not even to the build point yet because we're not really decided on what or where, in my opinion.
So, you said ditto to Tim. I'm going to say ditto to Dennis because you took all my glory. Everything you said was what I was going to say. So I feel that the architect for Fulcrum was very intelligent, knew the codes, knew what goes on behind the scenes. The gentleman from Lorero was stumbling over what codes, what different, as you said, what the different zones are. He didn't seem as though he had as direct a knowledge about building fire stations. And the strange thing is that when you look at their presentations, he's got a lot more experience than Fulcrum's architect did, which struck me. When I left that meeting, I was scratching my head saying, how can this guy have all this experience and not be able to quote even the code, not the code articles, but the code books, what the pertinent guidelines are for what we're looking to do. A couple things I really liked about Fulcrum was their community outreach coordinator and the fact that the project manager would be a firefighter EMT. So I think when I left that meeting, I was leaning towards Lorero as a contractor, but not towards their architect. And therefore, with everything that Dennis said and I added to, my vote would be to go with Fulcrum. I think we would get a better package with Fulcrum. If we could take Lorero and switch architects, I'd have a great feeling for Lorero. But that's not in the works.
But you're
So-
basing that on the interview.
On the interview, correct. So we've all spoken now, I'd like to hear from the chief, please.
So, the interviews, I will certainly admit that Fulcrum was much more polished in presenting what they do and stuff like that. I think the architect was much more on point with Fulcrum, and I would probably prefer that architect over the construction firm from Lorero, the architect from Lorero. Going back to the references that when I interviewed all the folks, the references for Lorero were so high, so ecstatic about that construction firm. And when you talk to him at the interview, that guy, Jim, he's there every single day. When you talk to the construction manager from Fulcrum, they're there when they need to be. That Jim, he's gonna own that building, that's gonna be his thing. And when I talked to the fire chief from Hudson, Rob Buxton, he says that guy was there, if there was a problem Sunday night, he was there Sunday night, fixing it. And at the end of the project, he says there were 3 punch list items and they had to do with the regulators on the urinals. They weren't set properly or something like that. Other than that, the building was good to go. And when you looked at the, one of the questions we had was punch lists. Fulcrum, usually the punch list was, 10, 20 items long, and I don't know how accurate that is, but when I talked to the people that use Fulcrum and how their punch lists were, they said they were normal and they did manage them over time. When you got a building from Lorero, there really essentially were no punch lists. So again, I would prefer to have Lorero as the construction team, but I didn't get a warm and fuzzy from the architect. And so I'm wondering if that's one of the things I threw out there. It says if we used you guys, and I don't know if I asked both contractors, but we could have the plans reviewed by a professional architect that all that they do is build fire stations. This guy. And I met him at a conference. I had a long conversation with him at a conference. He's out of New York. He builds all over here. Derry's using him now. And he said he would consult. And when you go through this thing, which I can email to all of you, he would be, whoever the architect is, he would design the building, but wouldn't be the primary architect. He would be the second in charge. So that, might cost us a few $1,000s, but probably have a better product in the end. And I personally feel that Lorero can deliver that better than Fulcrum. The thing that I didn't like about Fulcrum is they talked a good show, but when I talked to the people that used them, yeah, they do the work, but they're not really hands-on as much as Lorero was. So that's my conundrum on all this.
So let's, for me, the community outreach part of it is it's not primary, but it's important. If we were to decide to go with Lorero, can we mandate that they, or how do we get that same community outreach through Lorero as? Now,
Well, they said they'd be there.
Jim was saying he'd be there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other guys basically said, well, we will if you want us to, but it wasn't. But I think we're digressing. We need to stay on focus. We have a spreadsheet. The interview was only worth 10%. Okay, so we can't just make a recommendation based on the interview. And I think I've already figured out when we score the interview, we come up with a score for each design-build firm, and our recommendation should be the one with the highest score.
Absolutely. So
So we
this
can
is
all
not,
give
this
our,
is not 10 or nothing. right? All the,
Correct.
all the other classes, with the exception of the 2 fees, were a percentage,
Correct.
right? The only all or nothing were the initial fee and the design build fee. So,
So I think what we all ought to do is agree on the score for Fulcrum for the interview and a score for Lorero on the interview, whether it's 100, 90, 80, 60,
Do
70.
you all want us to just jot down what we want, and take an aggregate?
Well,
Yes.
if
That's
we
what we
do
did
all
the last
that,
time.
if we do all that for each, we can throw it into the spreadsheet and Kathy
Correct.
will pop out with you know,
Correct.
what it is. She
Right.
has the,
But mathematically, I've already figured it out.
of
No.
course.
Okay, I'm just telling, I'm
Well,
just
yeah.
telling.
I mean, I don't know if we
I'm
need a
just telling
computer
you.
and Kathy, but I mean, we can pretty much.
But the proper way is to follow the process and we
You're-
each provide
You're so correct.
our score, and the spreadsheet tells the answer. And
Okay.
that's, because otherwise we can't change what we decided it was worth 10%. So we can't make it worth 50% now,
Right.
so,
Okay, so let's each of us jot down our score for the 2. And again, it's not all or nothing.
correct.
Okay, so let's start with, oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Let's start with Fulcrum. Um,
Want me to start?
Derek took my pencil.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start with Tim. For Fulcrum, what's your score?
I gave him 100.
So,
No, it's 10.
No,
It's
it's
10.
you
0
put the
to 10.
score, the score goes in here, and then the 10% of that score gives you,
Gotcha.
it ends up being, if you give them 100, it
Okay.
ends up being the 10 in the thing. But I
Okay.
gave Fulcrum 100.
can you explain what you just said to me, because I'm not seeing anything?
If
Up
you
in the
look up
upper
in
right
the upper
corner.
right-hand corner, we're scoring, in the green columns, it's the score we're giving them. Then the spreadsheet does the math. So if you give them 100, they end up getting 10 points because it's 10%.
It's a 10 point scale, right?
There's a formula built into the spreadsheet for all the squares. You want me to send it to you, Kathy?
No, I think I've.
All you
we have
need-
it in the
see the-
previous email. yeah.
Right.
Well, I think I might have sent it to you as a PDF, which wouldn't have the formulas in it.
But either way, we're just giving them one of those scores from the green box up above, whether it's excellent, very good, adequate, fair, poor, or unacceptable. And you can, and we also agree that you can vary it if you think they're in between very good and exceptional. You can give them a 95, you can give them a 92. It's like, remember old grade school and the tests we used to get? They don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? B minus.
I gave Fulcrum a 9
So you gave them a 90?
and 90.
Okay, yeah. Kevin?
Again, we're on Fulcrum, correct?
Yes, just Fulcrum.
$82.
Dennis?
I give him 90.
90, and I give them a 95. So let's do Lorero.
Yours counts too, right?
No,
No.
I don't have a,
he's not a voting
I
member.
don't have a voting member.
Okay, Lorero. Tim?
I gave them a 90.
90. Lisa?
I gave them an
80. Derek?
I gave him 50.
50. Kevin?
76.
70.
Did you say me?
Yeah,
76.
70. 76.
Sorry.
Dennis?
I give him an 80.
80. I give him an 88. Okay, mathematician.
80. Well, we're gonna just give them to, I can already tell you who the highest score is.
Okay, so.
We can do it if
so-
you
So
want. We take the
plan-
average, Kathy has the other spreadsheet that averages them all out, right? So we want to average our,
So do you want to give those to Kathy? Did you write them down, Chief?
It's pretty, you just take everything, add it all up, divide it by how many scores there are,
right,
and that'll give you the,
The total divided by.
The mean.
Right,
Yes.
right, so,
not the median, the
average.
mean.
right.
So,
You had 100,
so
Right.
this is a score.
oh, you got them? All of them? Oh, okay.
So tomorrow evening, this committee is presenting to the Board of Commissioners. Everyone is welcome to that meeting. I plan on attending as the chairperson, but everyone is welcome to express their opinions at that meeting. And then the commissioners will take it from there.
As committee members,
Yes.
That's 80 or 90.
do we have a meeting warned for tomorrow?
No.
Okay, so not as committee members, then as citizens. And I'll present.
You're gonna present on behalf of the committee.
Yes. And
Anybody can come to it,
yeah,
but
any-
we can't, the whole committee can come, but you can't
Exactly.
act as a committee, you can take no action as a committee.
Correct.
You cannot take any
But you
votes.
can express your
But you can
opinion.
certainly express your opinion,
Right.
so we don't have to notice it.
No, but if we were
That's
there
the
as a
average.
committee,
You would, but then you could take action as a committee.
So we're gonna call that 93,
93.
so that's.
We'll go in,
It's 93. And 77. We're at 77. Okay, so now,
So
what does that mean on the overall
on
tally?
the overall, okay, so 10% of the 93 is 9.3, right?
Yep.
So what's not in this spreadsheet is the round-off error, and Kathy's would catch it, so we might be off by a point or two, but, so I just said it would be 9.3, and they had, or 93, and they had 9.9, well, 9, basically, if you're rounding it.
Yeah,
right?
if you get 9.
So they have a score, so Fulcrum has a score of 80 as a total, right?
Or 80, or 30.
Because 71 plus 9, right?
Yep.
What's the 71? Oh, the
That's their
total.
their
So
previous
It's the
total.
previous total.
So then if you do, the other one is
77.3.
7.7, so it's basically 8. So 75 plus 8, right?
Yep.
Is 83, so Lorero has an 83.
83 and
Fulcrum
Fulcrum
has
has
an 80.
80.
Now, there could be some round-off numbers in the previous scores, and one could be up 1 point or down 1
Probably
point.
wouldn't move
But
more
the
than one
spread-
decimal point.
The spread is, you know, is Lorero over Fulcrum by 3 points.
Okay, so could you ask Kathy to finalize this tomorrow, make sure that everything's right, and then distribute it to everyone,
Do you,
please?
so Lorero got, I mean, Fulcrum was the first one,
92.8 was the average,
92.8, and Lorero was
77.3.
Okay, I'll
And do you
have
want to
Kathy,
check my math to make sure
I'll
I
have
did
Kathy
it
throw that in, and
Do you want me to?
Then how do you
right?
get?
Somebody
how
else
does-
saw it
That being the
independently.
case, how did Lorero, oh, I almost said it.
Lorero.
How did they come out with more?
Because before the interview, they had a 75, and Fulcrum had a 71.
Had a 4-point lead going into
They had
the
a 4-point lead going in. And that's why I was saying they had to do really poorly to not
Right.
beat Fulcrum, and I don't think they did very poorly. So I mean, then I guess what we would now do is make a motion to recommend one or the other. Is that how we're doing it? Based on our,
that's, well, that's up to the committee, but yeah,
Right.
that would be the plan, I would thought.
Provided that Kathy's scores come out right, but we know
it's
it's gonna be
somewhere in
nominal.
there.
It's
Right.
not gonna be enough
Right.
to, right.
Well, you're right.
Did I get it right? Just in case I hit a button or something, I didn't wanna, so.
Okay, so, how do we want to do this? What if Kathy's numbers come up different than ours?
They can't come out, well, they can't come out more than,
Drastically different.
It wouldn't be,
It
it would,
wouldn't
be-
the most it would be a decimal point, one way or the other, because of the rounding. It
Won't be
Right.
3 points.
won't be 3 points.
right, it wouldn't
Like, I
even
can't
be a
even see it being
half,
a
it
full
wouldn't
point,
even
really.
be a half a point,
Yeah,
because,
Okay,
so I think,
Do we have, would somebody
I mean,
like to make a motion?
I guess I'll make a motion that we recommend Lorero as the design-build contractor.
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Ayes have it. So, tomorrow night at 5:30. Now, from after tomorrow night, or actually after tonight, right? It's now in the commissioner's hands.
Yes.
So is this committee going to dissolve, or is it going to stay active in the event that?
I believe the commissioner's intent was to keep this committee active, to go through the space needs portion of it and the costing study to see, what's cost more here or there and that kind of stuff. But I don't know how many, it's probably just to give the contractor his mission. And then when they come back with I don't know how many meetings there are going to be after that, because the contractor will take that information and run with it. And then when they have the data that they need to come back, they'll probably come back to our committee here and
So
review what they found.
I think part of the,
Well, we need to define the scope.
Yeah,
I mean,
part of
the
the-
commissioners can, but we've been on it, and we just determined, we've defined a scope in our RFQ, but then we decided, well, that's not the entire scope. So, I mean, it's up to the commissioners, but I would think that they would want us to move forward with defining that scope. Because you don't want a contractor running in one direction and not, you know
And
what I'm
have it be
saying?
the wrong direction.
And head in the wrong direction, because I think we want to focus, so I think we need to, they're gonna, as part of our FQ, they're saying they're gonna review the TNFD's design criteria. Is that design criteria written in there? No, so, I think before you have them doing anything, they can propose a scope, I think, and the commissioners can review it, but I think we've been on this long enough that maybe we should
Well-
be reviewing it as well.
There's a lot of scope information in the
There is.
right,
There is. But didn't we say we wanted them to look at the Sanborn Road first?
we did. And I know that's the intent of the commissioners at the
Right.
time that they took
Right,
that vote.
so,
okay, so under the, I'm sorry, I didn't mean
that's
to interrupt
okay.
you.
No, you're right. We defined it. Sorry. I
So
felt
on
like crap. It's-
Section 5 of the RFP, work prior to the execution of
Yes.
design build.
And that would be their first
Preliminary
contract.
design
Yep.
says, perform a space needs study including 3 meetings with the Tilton Northfield Fire Department staff.
Yep.
Attend 5 meetings with the building committee, attend 2 meetings with the commissioners. Prepare PowerPoint presentations, 5 additional public information meetings, cost estimates during design development, and on and on. So
Correct.
if this building committee is second on the list of design requirements to attend, for them to attend 5 meetings with us. Now, I assume that's not gonna be 5 before they meet with the commissioners, that's 5 overall.
Yeah, I think probably overall, but what the problem with the RFQ as it's written is that we really didn't have them looking at 2 different sites where we're gonna have them do that now.
Right.
So, they're probably gonna have to do a space needs analysis no matter where we are. And then they're gonna have to look at, the costs of
So-
space between those 2 spaces.
See, here we go, we're putting the cart before the horse again. Until we have ownership as a district of that property over on Sanborn Road, none of it matters. We need to have a contract stating that that land is ours before we do any of this space needs, any of it.
Well, what if you don't want, what if the space needs says you can't do anything over there? You don't wanna have to have bought the property.
Bought it for $1.
Well,
Now
I
what do
think
you
that
do
that's,
with it?
that's entirely up to the commissioners though, how they handle the lease, purchase, exchange, whatever the commissioners, that's up to the commissioners and the selectmen of the town of Tilton, how they're gonna
I totally agree.
negotiate that.
But I think that decision has to be made before we do space needs for 2 different locations.
Well, the
I-
space needs is one, it doesn't matter what the space needs in it. It can be split into 2 locations, right?
Well,
Isn't
it certainly could with respect to if the Sanborn Road site is chosen, then Park Street is gonna remain as is. So that affects the space needs. Whereas if we go to Park Street's gonna get torn down and a new building put up. So I mean, that's a huge difference in
And
scope
I
of
think
work.
the commissioners wanna know the difference in price to do that. Is it gonna be more beneficial to keep Park Street and build on Sanborn Road, or build everything at Park Street? They wanna know the cost of those 2 things
So
before
what
they.
we've done is we've just doubled the cost of determining the design, right?
No, I think once you get the cost number, I think that's what they're, from what I understand, whichever one was cheaper is the one that they wanted to go with,
I
because.
get it, but now instead of designing one building, or
That's why I'm saying we
costing one
have to
building.
define what we want them to cost.
I don't think they designed the whole building.
They don't,
I think they'll,
And that's back to
space
spending in
needs
itself as
of
well.
each one, of each option, option 1 or option 2, whatever you wanna call it, there's gonna be a certain amount of space, and they'll probably look at what kind of spaces of each and throw a general number at per square foot and say it's gonna cost this much to build it, this building here, this much building here, given that you have to do so much on this site, or so much on that site.
No, I get it, I
Yeah,
totally get it,
It's a big matrix, though, there's
but
more than there's more than 2 options. It can get out of control.
what,
For instance, are we just gonna build something over here and leave Park Street as is? Are you gonna build something here and Park Street? Or are you gonna
but none of it
build it
even
all at Park
matters.
Street?
None of it even
The
matters
cost
until we
matters.
have a firm ownership contract for Sanborn Road.
Otherwise, we could pick any random piece of property.
Exactly.
Right? Is that where you're going?
Yes, exactly.
Maybe the way to start is say, what can we fit at Park Street?
We've already
And
done that.
supplement, well, I don't know that we
Not
never
really.
did the space needs, so we don't know that we actually could fit whatever the,
We were told you could put 15,000 square feet at Park Street.
right. And I don't know if 15,000 is the right amount, because I know that increased, right?
If you have everything at Park Street,
If
I
everything
think
is Park
15
Street.
is big enough, but.
In my opinion, I mean, the only benefit to this whole thing for me is getting someone else other than committees to do a needs study. Because right now, I've watched the years transpire. We've had how many committees? 3 committees. We've spent a lot of money analyzing stuff. And depending who ends up on the committee, determines where the focus is. And I think this last focus, my personal opinion, and I'm not casting,
Yeah.
any disparaging statements against anybody, but I would like to know how we left out where we service, response times. That's a huge thing. I mean, I think this district has been so hyper-focused on a cost, and a cost that gets, what you get for that cost has decreased and is decreasing exponentially every single year that we go on. So when I heard about this, I was like, you know what? I just see more money being wasted on another study where we come out and everybody comes up there, the opinions come alive at the district meetings, and then it gets voted down because it's like, this might meet a price, but it doesn't meet the needs. Because I can tell you, if you have, and the town of Tilton does, it does work into this. We've got, 62% of the calls happen on this side of Winnipesaukee River. Okay? And then when you talk about response times, I did it today, not that this is not really scientific, but it's not too far off either. I drove 35 miles an hour from the Park Street station, from a stop. If you come up Park Street to the lights, it's 0.8 of a mile. If you take a right, go down and come up Summer Street, bang a right on that bridge, you come to a stop behind, hopefully not behind as many vehicles as I did today, but it's still still 8/10 of a mile. And you're adding, if you go Summer Street at 35 miles an hour was 2 minutes. It was 1.5 minutes up Park Street. Granted, that's at 35 miles an hour. The fire trucks are gonna be going faster than that? Not much faster. By the time, when you look
How many
at,
fire trucks are in Center Street?
We have an engine and an ambulance and the command cars.
We have one engine.
I think we need to go back historically when the committee started, and Kevin could speak to the committee before that, because the commissioners formed the committee to come up with a design for the Park Street
right,
property. And that came out of a committee before that, you were on that, right?
I was on that as well, and what it was that was for immediate needs with a proposal that you may need to add another station else. That was clear in the report, that
Yeah.
was not
So that report came out,
in
and the commissioners then
2019.
2019.
created this committee to come up with a cost for the Park Street.
Right,
project.
well, and I
guess-
think the focus of our committee was, you gotta hire somebody to do the space needs and say, okay, this is what we have. But then when Sanford Road came up, we decided, okay, well, we didn't decide, but the commissioners obviously are interested in the price for doing something on Sanford
So am I.
Road.
So am I.
So I
But-
think
But
we can't just have the contract or the designer, we need a focus. We need to say, okay, what can we have at Park Street, what can we have here?
do we own
And what
Sanborn
com-
Road?
Well, maybe not, but.
Exactly, maybe not. That's
Okay.
my point, is
So-
until the commissioners can form an ownership contract for that property, I say don't put any time
And
into
is it
designing
contingent
anything.
upon whether or not we can build what we want there?
I think the commissioners want to know what we can build there and how
And
much
what
it
it
will
will
cost there
cost.
to see if it's worth purchasing or not.
Right, and I think you would do that anyway on, say it was another parcel. Say the outlet mall closed and we get, right? I mean, I guess you would, we know, Park Street's a fixed entity. We know the plan, we know the acreage, we know
We
the
don't know what
survey.
it's gonna cost to build there.
Well, we all gonna find out, because that's part of
So-
their scope.
Exactly, that's part of the scope, and that's my entire point.
So you wanna
Is
just
that-
focus on
Is
Park
that,
Street?
well, no, I'm perfectly fine with doing a space needs on Sanborn Road, once we have an ownership contract. Until we have that contract, that's someone else's land.
Okay.
There was a certain amount of thought amongst the committee members as well, as I recall that, and when you said immediate needs, that's what sparked what I'm about to say. That was to get our people out of Center Street.
Correct.
And I think we all acknowledge that at some point in the future, something's gonna happen over here as well. But, I continue to believe that you have to present something that will pass. And I don't believe there's a snowball's chance in hell that we're gonna pass 2 buildings at one time. The idea was to take a bite at the apple, Park Street,
Knowing that we would build
knowing at
something
some
in the
point,
future.
it's gotta come. And but the who, what, why, where, and how of it's gotta come can't be determined right now. Because you don't know what's gonna happen.
and I'm
That
of the
was
opinion
the
that, why would you waste millions of dollars on something that doesn't meet the actual needs?
Well, yeah,
If we don't meet the needs of the district the way it should be, this $1 million
current
Band-Aid
needs or,
maintenance, it's just crazy.
current needs or future needs.
Yeah.
I think we determined
Money
that
after
we could
bad.
meet current needs at Park Street, but that we knew that you have future needs that need to be met elsewhere. But that's back in 2019.
Sure.
Okay, that's 3
My
years.
impression is, once
4
the
years.
Sanborn Road parcel became available from the selectmen to the commissioners thought that if we do not evaluate both sites, and we go to district meeting with only looking at Park Street and put a plan in front of the district to say, this is Park Street, and we didn't even look at Sanborn Road and the cost of building there, it was gonna fail no matter what. because everybody at district meeting will say, well, did you look at Sanborn Road? Nope, we decided not to look at Sanborn Road, so
So why hasn't a contract been entered into? Because the Board of Selectmen offered us that property for a 99-year lease, or what was it?
I think it was 50 or 100 or I don't know. It was something like that,
For a buck.
for a buck.
And if we build a station there, we give them this land over here without a building.
Correct.
Why can't we
That's
sign
my
that?
understanding.
Why can't we sign that contract?
Because I don't think the commissioners wanted to give up Center Street without having to know what the cost of the two options were between Park Street and Sanborn Road.
Is there anything written into the deal between the Catholic Church and the town of Tilton relative to the use of that land and selling it off?
It can only be used for municipal purposes, and they looked into it, the fire station would fit into that municipal purpose use.
Is that why they have to lease it and not sell it because of the Catholic church?
No, I think the lease portion of it, I think, I don't know, but what I heard hearsay from somebody was that the town wanted to, in case the fire district ever split, they wanted to still control the land. Because there have been times in the past when there have been votes to split the fire district and they still wanted to control the land that parcel was on.
So the-
Yes. I don't know that for a fact, that's
Yeah,
just
the-
what somebody said to me once.
That sounds feasible.
I
Can
understand
the
that position.
selectmen
if that's-
enter into that agreement without town meeting vote?
I don't know, I have no idea.
What I can think the space needs, looking at Park Street and this parcel, you may end up with what, and I can picture it now, you're not gonna get 2 fire stations. You may get a phase, may get the 2, but it'll be a phased construction because of the wham of the price tag. But you won't know that till you know what the actual prices are. And if you don't study Sandburg Road, you won't know. Point blank.
That's,
Then you'll be basing it on a constricted site for current needs without addressing future needs. Whereas if you look at this site too, now you're saying, okay, we know that Park Street can give us this, and Sanborn Road or another site can give us this supplement, and you gotta balance out what's the current need, what's the future need.
Is there any reason why a contract could not be entered into purchase of the Sanborn Road property contingent upon passage of a bond?
You could.
Because,
that's up to
You
the
could.
lawyers,
That's the
or the
lawyers and
towns,
the towns.
peoples to figure out.
exactly, but
Yeah.
I firmly believe that if we spend any money doing any evaluation of Sanborn Road without a contract in hand for ownership, we're wasting our money.
Okay.
The Tilton School project, there is no agreement for the property.
Right.
It was offered.
There was,
And, right,
there was no written, well,
there was no.
there was an
formal
offer for Manville Road that the selectmen never signed it. I mean, the commissioners never signed it. So we did get a design for that building as well, a conceptual design.
So how does everyone feel about tomorrow evening with the commissioners meeting about expressing the desire to have a space needs for both sites, but not spending any money on Sanborn Road, any needs over there until we have a contract for the property? Is anyone against that or for it?
I guess I'd be, the way you stated it, I guess I would be against it. I think there needs to be both. I think we need to look at both. The nice thing is, the property's not going anywhere, because if it's limited to municipal use, there's no plans for Tilton to build a damn thing there right now.
But the
And
offer
nobody will
may
be able
go.
to, what's
The
that?
property's not going anywhere, but the offer may go.
The offer may go.
You mean for Sanborn Road?
I don't necessarily think, but
I
my
don't
point with that is,
think
they're not
so.
gonna, they can't sell it from out under the fire district at this
Well,
point.
they can't, but what they could do is say, look, we own that land, we're not gonna give it to you for $1 anymore, we're gonna charge you
Well,
$4 million or something.
I'm pretty confident that the residents of the town of Tilton would probably tar and feather and run them out of town, every selectman that reneged on a deal with the fire district. If a fire station was approved for that property,
But is
or
there a
build-
deal?
There is no deal, it's
Is-
verbal.
well, there's no, not that, I don't know, we're all like, I don't know right now.
That's what I'm saying,
I
is
guess the-
let's make the deal and then spend the money.
Well, I guess we get clarification tomorrow night, because the selectmen, I mean, the commissioners are the ones that have been talking to the town. I mean, I didn't know, I mean, Eric Pyre is both a selectman and a fire commissioner, so I mean, well, no, not anymore, but, well, he was when they made the deal, so.
Well, they excluded him from all discussions,
Did they?
yes, because it was a
Okay.
conflict.
So we could still,
Do we
they
need-
could still recommend that we move forward with hiring the contractor to do the space needs study for Park Street. I mean, that's already in the, we need to get a price from them anyway. I mean, they gave us a
They
price.
gave us a price.
They gave us a
And
lump
they said
sum
they'd
price and a pretty
They said
nice
they'd
one.
negotiate it too. The good thing about Lorero is they had all the engineering services in-house.
Right.
And so that cost was included in it, where all the engineering services from Fulcrum were out of house. And that were gonna add additional costs to their price. So,
So I guess there's no reason not to move forward with evaluating, doing a space needs in general, which is gonna give you the whole department's space needs, and then you still look at what does it cost on Park Street. That gives you one number, and then in the
But I mean-
meantime, if they move on this property, you can add scope to the contract.
But what you just described, right, was establishing the space needs for Park Street is not gonna happen in a week,
No,
right?
no.
So if we can get the commissioners to act upon this offer, even if it's conditional, if it's conditional to a bond approval, then that gives me the confidence to spend money for a space needs over there.
That's fine. I mean, we're adding scope. What we don't want them to do is then do a full-blown design over at
No,
Park
no.
Street
Right.
before. But I think there's a lot of time. We still want to do, we want community involvement. We want to do a survey. I think this committee would be, and again, it's up to the commissioners. I think us figuring out what questions to ask the public ahead, initial questions, and then as you focus on the fire station, because one of the things is, I think we're going to have to ask, what would you approve? Not in those words, but we need to find out the
Well,
feel of the public.
Okay.
I guess
so-
we need to show them something, but
So Fulcrum has this community outreach person.
yes, it's
So-
actually
so-
it's La Valley Brennan, Kathy.
So there's no reason not, once the commissioners offer this contract to Lorero, right? There's no reason not to ask Lorero, look, we want you to appoint a public outreach person, a point person in your company that will assist us with the survey, that will be available to answer any community-based questions.
Right, and they said they would attend them, but I think they were, it takes some of our stuff to begin, right? Don't you think?
you have to give
I mean-
them direction.
Right,
Well, yeah,
but
I
I
mean-
think the space needs is, they don't need us for the space needs,
No,
and I
free-
think once
Do they have
use-
everything from, I mean, do they have all of our equipment? Have they been provided all of this?
They will be if they.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I
Right.
mean, so it's gonna take a bit. I mean, they're gonna do a space needs
Right.
based on everything we've got. And
3 meetings with the staff.
yeah,
That's
so I mean,
gonna- that's
but
gonna
like you were,
take
to
2
your point
months.
earlier though, it's
No,
gonna
well-
take them a little while
No.
before. I mean,
So
we're
we're-
not looking at
But
land.
those aren't 3 up front. That's just as needed, like
That's
they're
for,
gonna meet,
it says space needs study, including 3 meetings
including
with
3
staff.
meetings, but that will end up, okay, 3 meetings for the space needs. Okay.
So they come, they meet the staff, you have 4 shifts of staff, so,
It's
So
not-
then-
everybody on the staff is not gonna be involved.
They're gonna meet
in
with
this.
the chief and.
The chief, the deputy, the officers, some of the firefighters, senior firefighters.
probably
and
the commissioners.
We'll have, no, the commissioners are a separate one.
yeah,
Oh,
there's
you're
2
right,
meetings
you're right,
with the
okay.
So this is just with the fire department staff, some of the senior firefighters, the officers. Sit down with them, It probably won't even take 3 years, probably take 2.
This was
Well,
a
you've
RFP
already
that
done
we
the
sent
space
out,
needs
and this
thing
is-
that
this
they've
is what
seen.
we're discussing.
Yes,
So it's a matter of them
refining that.
looking at that and saying, okay, is that what,
Is it accurate, you know? Is it-
right,
and
based,
other- you know,
based on standards, based on
It's not-
NFPA,
Space needs subjective.
a little bit, but your fire truck has to fit.
To a certain extent.
But yes, the space needs for, say, a training facility or, the living space, but
But there's no
but
reason that
there's
can't be
limit.
modified after they
Correct.
present it. I mean,
Correct.
I'm no expert on what the space needs of a fire department are. So I would encourage their input. Now, that's not to say that it's cast in stone and we can't.
right, I mean,
Change
they've
it.
been provided what the chief's already done. We've all been provided with that. We've got
But
this
that
spreadsheet.
anecdotal input is what's really killed us in the past. Because, and I kind of think I know where you're going, Kevin, but I mean, when it comes down to, let's just say when we start talking about, one company said green, red, yellow. Or green, yellow, red, whatever. Or the hot, warm,
Yeah.
cold. We don't necessarily, we can't say, no, we don't need that space for that. That's, and I've heard this a gazillion times when you go to meetings and stuff, it's just anecdotal, we don't need that. Back in circa 1772, we were, we gotta get away from that because, the NFPA does dictate a lot of stuff, and I brought up the zones because, we really, if we're gonna build a fire station that's adequate and safe for the firefighters, there's so much stuff coming up now, a lot of the firefighting, equipment and compounds, or whatever you wanna call them, all the, the stuff that you guys use to fight fires with, it's not just water anymore, or CO2. We have carcinogenics out there, we're finding out more and more stuff, now they're saying that your turnout gear is cancerous,
Right.
carcinogenic, it's like, holy crap, but I'm just saying all that, we have to consider all that, so if we say, we only need 6 bays for, 6 pieces of equipment, with, you guys can hot rack it, we only need 3 bunks for 6 guys, again, that's just anecdotal stuff right there, we
That's
get
what we
lost
need
in
the
a quagmire.
That's what we need the architect for.
Right.
Now, I do have a question. Do you, for what you call decon, right?
Mhm.
Do you have it at Park Street and
Yes,
Center Street? So each has it.
yes.
And that's equipment
Kind of.
that was just
We don't have
purchased 2
Real
years
spot
ago.
to decon stuff.
Right, and it's,
It,
You decon it and spray it off into a
in,
drain.
oh.
Yeah,
yeah, and that's really not
It's not
proper,
like-
No,
it's
okay,
like,
so that's. all
It's
right.
not captured anywhere.
My only
The
question
sewer
was
system
that
at
you
Park
had
Street
it.
catches it, and, well, the sewer system in both places
Catches it.
Yeah, but,
And we have a sink.
Well,
and we have
But that's-
No,
the extractors and the
Right.
dryers and all that stuff.
At
Which is-
both stations.
Yes.
And that's relatively new. That's only a couple
Yeah,
of
they're
years
only
old.
a few years old now, yeah. And,
So obviously you need space for that.
and they take up,
in the new
they take a
place
certain
and-
amount of space, and the next machine that we need to buy is the SCBA washing machine. Yeah, because,
but having equipment for it,
Yeah.
and the process, they get convoluted,
Have
we
to.
can't convolute those. And the process, you can have the best equipment in the world, but if the process is incorrect, we might have clean turnout gear, but, with the different zones, and granted, I wasn't firefighter, but I was the NBC NCO in Army, our decon procedures for nuclear, biological, chemical, kind of the same principles, and,
You need the space.
it's a very distinct process, because then you get contamination if you don't do the process. And I'm thinking that what we have right now it's great, we have the equipment for this here, then the sink might be there and the drain's there. The process is
Well, if
broken.
you're gonna build a new station, you want it built.
Well, yes, but if we're gonna get
Yes.
space needs, we gotta leave that to people instead of, we gotta avoid the conjecture at the district meetings.
That's why we
People
have
need to be
it.
educated.
That's the very first task for
Right,
you.
yeah.
It's important.
So I suggest then that once the commissioners issue a contract and do you think it would be?
Well, they're not gonna issue a contract. What happens now is Lorero will come back.
with the,
I assume, they gave us another contract.
yeah,
form.
the different,
Right, which is fine. I mean,
Yep.
I think we want to look, well, here I am being a damn engineer. The commissioners want to look at it to make sure it's it's the scope. But it'll be a different contract form. I assume that they will provide it, and then the commissioners will look at it.
But nonetheless, that's gonna be a formal contract between the district and Lorero
Lorero.
to start the space needs. During that time, I would like to see some finalization of this Sanborn Road property before we go and start issuing requirements for the space
Well,
needs study or anything else.
I think that's something you should definitely bring up to the commission.
Right, because the way this is defined, we're giving them the whole contract, because they've given us a price for this whole contract.
Mhm.
So when you're saying before they go and do the space, they'll do the space needs, and then you're saying you're gonna stop them after that?
No, what I'm saying is, I don't want any space needs done over here until we have ownership. So maybe that is, I mean, if the commissioners want to sign a contract with this team and say, just hold off, don't do anything until we finalize that, I'm fine with that. I just don't, or if they want to do some initial space needs study work, but not, I don't want to spend any money on Sanborn Road design until we have a firm contract to own
How does
that
everyone
property.
else feel about that?
Say it again.
I'm wondering how everyone else feels about that.
I
That
asked
makes
earlier.
sense.
Well, how do you feel about it?
I happen to agree with you.
Okay. Derek?
I think it makes sense.
My question is, can the fire district and town enter into that type of agreement without going before the voters at a town meeting?
My gut feeling is one can and one can't.
That was my thought.
Scary, you know?
I'll disagree with you on that, only in the respect that the RSA for a special village district, the powers of the fire commissioners are exactly the same as the powers of selectmen. So whether they can or can't,
But
I
one
think
is
it's the
buying,
same.
one is selling.
I don't think that makes a difference.
Yeah, I don't know, but.
But that's up to, we can, so anything that we do in the fire district, contractual wise, is reviewed by Primex for liability purposes, and then it's reviewed by the fire district's council for all the other legalities and whether it's legal or not to do. We have two sets of lawyers looking at all the contracts. So if there's a mistake in there, two lawyers had a chance at it.
So I guess the next step really is it's in front of the commissioners. They're gonna, we've made our recommendation to them. Tomorrow night we can have a verbal discussion. But it's really in their court what they do.
Yeah.
It's not, we have no control over it. So if they want to have Lorero do the space needs study for both parcels, we can't stop that.
Nope.
So,
But the building committee as a whole, if they can make a recommendation to the commission to say that we prefer that you don't spend any money on Sanborn Road until you get at least a conditional agreement on the property, based on a successful bond vote, if they so choose to use that property. But you're probably gonna have to have some study on it,
let's
one
go
way or
back-
the other.
Let's go back to the polling. So you didn't answer directly. Would you like to, or is that you're sticking with
I think
it?
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay, Lisa?
Well, the question is, I think they should move forward with the contract as we have it written here. When you go and add another site, you're adding another thing to the contract. They've given us a price for this scope of work. And that's what the contract that we should enter
And
into.
it's for a single site.
It's for, in fact, we clarified it in the addendum. It is for Park Street because it got way too confusing when we were pointing in different sites.
Okay.
So I have seen no reason not to move forward with this scope. And you can slow them down at any time and add another scope to that should the commissioners desire.
Do you plan on being at the meeting tomorrow night?
I guess I can. Where, is it here?
It is here.
Same time, same place.
5:30. Yeah. You can just camp out.
What was that TV show?
Same bat channel,
Same
same
bat
bat
time,
place.
same
that-
bat
Yeah.
that-
Batman.
All right, so,
That channel. I said that in a meeting one time and everybody looked at me. They were all too young.
I know, I used to say it all the time. I've given up. Same with Bueller. Bueller,
I guess I don't know that one.
You don't know
Ferris
Bueller?
Bueller?
Oh, I know the
Ferris?
movie, but I didn't recognize.
See what they did to
Oh,
the
yeah.
Ferrari?
They drove off the cliff.
Backwards. Yes.
All right, so I guess, so I think what we should do is agree to reconvene at some point in the future after the commissioners enter the contract with Lorero, or whoever they decide. And we'll just sit in the wings until then. It's-
Yeah, so,
I mean, we could come up with survey questions if we wanted to, or you think wait till this, get the space needs?
When you say the survey questions, are you talking for like a public hearing on this?
Well, I think that was sort of discussed at those interviews, that
Right.
that we should make a questionnaire. We discussed it in previous meetings in the committees where we don't know that, you know, we subject that, oh, you know, taxpayers want to pay this, or they don't want this, or they all want it, you know, Northfield wants it at Park Street and Tilton doesn't. Who knows that? That's all conjecture, right? You don't know that. But I think,
I guess
you
I'd
know,
like to
I've been working on that
Formulate-
behind the scenes, but
formulate those questions.
still
with-
conjecture at this point.
how do
With the
you formulate
assistance-
those questions so
When we
that
don't.
the questions aren't biased?
well, that's the problem. You have to,
I think I would like
You
to
can
encourage Lorero's assistance in
assistance
that.
in that, right. That would be one of the things that we probably would do when they meet with us, right?
And also, I mean,
Have they
again,
done
back
this?
to the public outreach.
Right,
So they said they would help us with that, so let's take them up on it.
well, right, and it's in their scope. They're gonna attend 5 public information meetings and presentations. And they're gonna prepare PowerPoint, so they're part of the outreach team whether they like it or not. That's why we wrote that, right? But obviously we need to be, well, we don't need to be part of it. They can run with whatever the commissioners ask them to do. I think there's a lot of work to still be done for a committee.
There's other companies out there that could be hired to do that and at the same time look at data to come up with appropriate questions. I know that's how, like, the UNH Survey Center does it. They take all this data, no matter what it is they're surveying, and they formulate unbiased questions based on the data to come out with an opinion of the public. I know,
I've taken so many of them surveys, I take them just as a litmus test to see just how unbiased they are.
They're not unbiased at all. They're not unbiased.
for it.
because
They're-
a lot of
They don't let you answer the answer you want to give.
Yeah, it's just like, well, gee, out of those choices, how about I just, a lot of times I just end up stopping it because I'm
Yeah.
like, this is going nowhere.
It's
I'm
not
not going to give
biased.
them any more data that they,
X out of it.
yeah,
I
like survey
understand.
says, yeah.
So
Do you want to finish your survey? No.
Do you guys want to set up a provisional meeting date for our next meeting? And we can cancel it if it's not necessary?
I mean, originally we had, well, if we're gonna move forward, is there gonna be a certain night of the week like we had in the past? Is that where you're headed?
It was the first and third or second and fourth or something, right?
Something like
Or
that. That
I
would
think
be,
it was the first and third Mondays of the month is how we were going at it. Because I know it's all on my calendar.
yeah, I
My,
deleted them
upper-
all because it got all
Yeah.
messy, but, so, I mean, if we were gonna move forward and we were gonna have work, obviously if we don't have anything to do, we would
Right,
cancel
that's-
the meeting, right?
Exactly. So so the 17th would be the third
Yeah.
week of April, or May 1st would be the first Monday of May.
Yeah.
Or you wanna keep it on
So I
Mondays?
was
You
gonna
were-
say, do we
it's
wanna
not
stay
th-
with
You're
Monday?
switching, we were on Thursdays and we went to Mondays, right?
Thursdays are good.
I don't care, it doesn't, the only time is
Most Thursdays.
when you
are
start to
good.
get into the summer,
Yeah, okay, so,
Mondays, well, depends on what I'm doing.
so the third Thursday is no good
What
for
does,
me.
what does Wednesday look like for anyone?
I'm busy.
Yeah, Wednesdays are bad for me. Well, actually, no, my Wednesdays are gonna get freed up now that I think about it.
During the summer. golf
You're busy.
season, And,
For golf.
yes.
So, you want to do Thursdays?
Thursdays seem to work for me.
You're just saying
Like
it's
I
just
say,
the
the
first
third-
and third.
The third Thursday is no good for me every Monday. So we could do the first,
So stay with Monday.
stay with Monday?
If you have a continuing commitment on a Thursday.
I do, the third Thursday of every month. So,
Or do
We-
second and fourth.
we could do second and fourth.
20.
Thursdays, Mondays are fine.
Is that okay with you, Gary?
Yeah.
Kevin?
I'm sorry?
Thursdays, the second and fourth Thursday of the month?
When did the selectmen?
Oh, they meet on Thursdays.
Thursday. I actually would, if it's gonna be the second and fourth, I prefer Monday.
Okay, are you good on Monday?
I'm great. I'm open for
Okay.
whatever.
Second,
Pick a day.
second and fourth, just do it. Second and fourth Monday?
Yeah, works.
Okay, Tim,
Second and fourth Monday.
Lisa?
Okay. So the next meeting would be the 24th, is what you're saying.
So, second would be next Monday. I think that's too early.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
24.
let's shoot for the 24th.
4/24. On my list to give Kathy.
And then, I guess there's no need to schedule more after that.
That would-
We can keep the same time, 5:30?
5:30, yeah. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, especially, is this room always open
Well,
on Mondays?
if it's not, Kathy makes arrangements for us to meet somewhere else.
Okay.
Usually at the Tilton Police Station, if this is unavailable.
So, next meeting is April 24th at 5:30, right here.
Probably
And-
here.
And we'll encourage the commissioners tomorrow night to move forward and give us some additional guidance. And our goals now are to continue moving through the process of assisting the contractor in establishing space needs. Is that correct? Or anything else?
The only other thing I'd like to bring is, if you're gonna talk to them about the Tilton property, I guess my question for the commissioners, and I guess I can ask you tomorrow too, sure, is about lease opposed to purchase, and what's the commissioners' take on that? You know, are they open to a lease? Are they not open to a lease? Are they open to a purchase only?
Yeah, I think it's an important question to find
Because-
out what the Board of Selectmen offered the district.
Well, right, that's the start, but then, I mean, but there's always there's offers and counter offers, anyways they do. But my point is too, is I don't know what action that would require for town meetings. Does it have to go to district meeting, does it have to go to town meetings? One, do the town of Tilton, the residents of town of Tilton, do they have to approve a sale? I don't know if they'd have to approve a lease, but I don't know the legalities of that. So those are questions in my mind. What's gotta happen for any of that to happen?
Yeah.
And what is the commission's intent, and is that the commission's purview, or is that a district purview as well, as far as voting whether or not we, because if
Well,
it's a
that's-
purchase, even
that's-
for $1, I think it's
That's
still.
probably a question the chief can get answered tomorrow, as far as, what's the legality of a lease versus a purchase, a $1 you know,
Yeah.
land transfer.
I'll have to contact council and
So that when we bought the land at exit 19, it had to go to district waiting by.
yeah, because we had to appropriate the funds to do it, not to actually purchase it.
See, there's no funds in the budget to buy,
There was no funds in the budget.
there is now. There's now, right?
Well, if there's $1, there's plenty of.
Well,
funds.
actually now, we could do it because the commissioners are now agents to the land and building fund. So the commissioners could do it without an appropriation, because now they can spend it if they need to spend it. Whereas before, the commissioners were not agents, so that's why we had to wait almost a year to purchase the land, because they had to appropriate the funds to do it.
Any other comments or discussion? Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meetings, those opposed? Meetings adjourned at 7:07. Thank you all.
Good, good.
Good?
Good.